I constantly think every other female pop star is cooler than me, and look, I look up to them, and I'm really shy around them. Like Charlie XCX, I saw her at the Brits, and I'm so shy because she's just so cool.
So your album is coming out in a month, is that right?
Yeah. Bloody hell, is it a month? Oh my goodness. Better get cracking. Better get working. It's definitely in a strange time to release an album. I'm not going to lie. It's a kind of scary time, but it's an awesome kind of time. So much is changing. It's been, you know, a couple of things at once where we've really, you know, questioned ourselves and questioned how we live our lives and what we know and what we could learn. And so look, and it seems there were a couple of times I thought, do I bring this album out? Because it feels at the moment like it felt trivial. It felt like, you know, this song is about, you know, it's kind of about relationships, and it's about, you know, egotistical men. But then actually I realized that I am going to release the album because this is a time where we should carry on, as opposed to thinking that it's just like, you know, a couple of weeks of, you know, like for example, Black Lives Matter. It's not. This is a lifetime of learning, and a lifetime. You know, this is a new thing that we all have to have as part of our lives, rather than like stopping our lives for a couple of weeks to read a few books and then just carrying on as normal. So I think it's really important that it's going to remain like a dual thing with all of our lives. So yeah.
That's what I was wondering when everyone started posting the blackout, and I know there was the discussion around whether or not that's helpful or not, but I've been thinking about it more over the last week, and I think it ultimately is helpful, right? Because then you can hold those people accountable that posted, like in a few months' time, and ask, you know, what are you still doing to educate yourself and to learn?
Yeah, but also, you know, I think we are a world of people who like to talk, and we like to, you know, I was going to say gossip, but you know, we love stories, and so I think the fact that it was, you know, people were posting in the first place. You know, people sometimes say to me like, you know, you talk about climate change, but you go on flights, and you know, the only way I can justify that is I think it's better to be. This sounds mad, but it's better to be a bit of a hypocrite and talk about it and affect like, you know, maybe 20 people or 100 people or 1,000 people than not say anything at all. Because, you know, we don't have the means to be ultimate eco warriors, but we do have the means to be activists for Black Lives Matter. We have the means, we have the books, we have the history to read about, to learn about, and we have the people to talk to and to you know, share stories with. So yeah, I think I agree with you. It is ultimately, in the long run, it was a good thing that everyone did it, and it shows that, you know, at least fundamentally, that people do care. You know, even from a very fundamental level, instead of people being like, well, I'm not, you know, I'm not racist, and being really defensive. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing that a lot of people have realised with this particular movement, is that it's not just enough to be not racist. You've kind of got to be anti-racist, which can feel really radical when you start doing it.
I think it's all about being radical, and it, you know, there have been mad protests and people burning down things, but you know, this is what happens when something happens over and over again that isn't dealt with, where there isn't any kind of justice. And you know, historically, protests have needed to be that extreme. They've needed to be, because stuff needs to change, like real things need to change. It's not just like, you know, I think the government feels safe with peaceful protests, and it's too safe. They can't just watch the protests and think, oh, that's very good, maybe we'll do something about it at some point. You know, there needs to be this, you know, this intensity. There needs to be this passion, and things need to change. You know, I mean, it's just so, not to get like so overly passionate about this, but it's so structural, and it's been there for so long, and it's tied up in so much legislation and laws and rules and, you know, society, that needs to change. So I think, yeah, anyway, I mean, we could talk about this. I know we've got to talk about music, but you know, music has been, I think, an escapism for people, and always will be. And I think that I'm happy I'm bringing this album out, because actually when I listened back to the songs last night, I realized that, it was so much about loving yourself. And I don't know if you remember the Me Too, of course you remember the Me Too movement that was huge, where I felt like it kind of inspired me certainly to have this new level of independence and love for myself. And thinking back to the times where I'd, was this kind of shy and apologetic woman. And then that movement really, lit a fire in me and made me, I feel like a new confidence in the music, because I'm just talking about having this love for yourself. And it's not being, arrogant or thinking that you're amazing. It's just realizing that you have this love that no one else can take away. And so that's what the album's about. So maybe in some weird way it's poignant right now.
I think it absolutely is. You've got, and there's sort of two sides to it. Is that right?
Yeah.
So how does that work?
I think the side A is much more my kind of emotional, internal kind of stuff. And I've written everything, and I played a lot of the instruments, and it's very much what my fans would say is like halcyon days, which was my second album, and a time where I was just, there was no external influence, there was no collaboration other than between me and the producer. And so it was very kind of insular with me writing in the studio in New York and just being alone. And then the second half is where I've opened myself up to be this kind of character. I'm adopting this character because it's fun, and because I can, and because I feel like I'm kind of in a place where I'm allowed to be this thing. It's like going on stage and, being this powerful person and running around the stage, and then coming off stage and just being myself again.
Did you have any inspiration for when you're creating that character? Who were the kind of people that you would look to for inspiration for that?
God, that is a good question. I think I looked at other female pop stars. I constantly think every other female pop star is cooler than me. And look, I look up to them, and I'm really shy around them. Like Charlie XCX, I saw her at the Brits, and I'm so shy because she's just so cool. And I assume no one thinks that about me. So I've always had this, and I think this is why I've never collaborated with a female. I have this like mad insecurity. But I do look up to them, and Christine and the Queens and like Beyonce, they have these amazing personas. When Beyonce had Sasha Fierce, and I think that is amazing, because it's almost like you've had to create this character to have that confidence.
Funny that you say that about Charlie XCX, because when Starry Eyed and your first sort of songs came out, they were a totally new kind of type of pop. So I imagine that would have had a really big influence on the sort of pop that she created.
She came out almost at the same time, like maybe like a year or two later than me. Fans love to bring up people's old tweets. And so they'll bring up tweets that say, like, from female artists saying like, oh my God, I love Ellie Goulding's, I love that Ellie Goulding, and I love like Starry Eyed, and I love Under the Sheets, or whatever else I put out then. And so that's quite sweet, regardless of whether they influenced by me or not. I do meet female artists who say, oh, I love this song, and I'm like, what, how the hell do you know that song? I never would have known that if I hadn't like ever spoken to them.
I've been thinking a lot about, like, with these interviews, right, because I'm in Australia and you're in Britain, is that right? Yeah, like usually, obviously this would be in person. And sort of like what you were saying earlier about how catching a plane can be really bad for the environment. Do you think in the future these sorts of interviews will stay digital, or do you think there'll still be a time where we're meeting in person for press?
I don't, this fly is obsessed. I don't know, because we were talking about this earlier, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the fact that people have been forced into this adapted life, including with performances. And it will be really interesting to see if people have become so conditioned to this kind of world where it's just all digital, that they will start to miss the intimacy of, for example, me being in my house in the like little cottage, feeling like they have a deep connection with someone because they're in their house around their personal things. With the interviews, like I very much feel like I have not been able to thrive personally. I'm very tactile, and I love like hugging people, and I love like eye contact, especially between two women. I love it. I don't think it's like professionally and personally, I don't think I've been able to thrive it's just, I'm just not very good at this stuff. I'm not very good at like, you know, the Instagram lives. I get so hot and sweaty and stressed. You know, and also I'm a naturally active person, so this time has been really difficult. I feel like I can go on every walk under the sun, but there's something about kind of buzzing around London or being, you know, getting on flights. It's just, yeah, it's been an odd kind of time.